ответственности и демографической политики. Также Московской международной школы бизнеса НИРБИС и российско-американского делового сотрудничества. Участие в нашем заседании мы пригласили ведущих мировых экспертов в области корпоративной и социальной ответственности. Это господин Брэдли Гугинс, профессор школы управления Бостонского университета, и господин Гугинс, доктор наук, эксперт в области организационной психологии и координатор программы лидерства для изменения.
Хотел бы начать с представления организаторов этого круглого стола. Прежде всего, Давид Михайлович Кабашвили, руководитель комитета корпоративной социальной ответственности и демографической политики Российской промышленности и член бюро управления РСПП. Наш партнер и по многим другим видам деятельности, в данном случае по организации этого круглого стола, Международная школа бизнеса НИРБИС, руководитель Центра корпоративной социальной ответственности Герасимова Светлана Александровна. Наш тоже давний партнер, и многим здесь известный эксперт в области социальных инвестиций, корпоративной социальной ответственности Сергей Туркин, агентство социальных инвестиций, генеральный директор этого агентства.
From these companies, as they sort of struggle with these issues, one of the things you'll see as we look at this issue is from a company perspective, from a business perspective, there's an enormous challenge to trying to understand why is this such a big issue? Why should this be more important to companies today? Why are so many people skeptical of corporate responsibility? Why are so many people looking to companies with how corporate responsibility plays a role in their society, etc.? So we have a sort of an interesting global perspective, I think. And again, during the question and answer, I'd love to sort of get into this as well. So these are the sort of the frames that we'd like to look at today that are equally important for a company's success. So one thing as we start to talk about this today, we'll see this transition starting to happen where companies not only think of profits as the ultimate test of success, but also begin to realize that they will not be able to be successful unless they understand and manage and respond to a whole variety of stakeholders, from employees, NGOs, governments, etc. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Next slide, please. What we see when we start to test this, when we ask executives across the globe what they think, you can see a very different story. Which of the following statement best describes the role of large companies? Only 16% would be in the Milton Friedman camp, that it's about profits. But today, executives understand, 84%, that generating high return to investors, but balancing it with good corporate citizenship, good corporate social responsibility. What's the value proposition for companies around corporate responsibility? If a company cannot answer, what's the value, what's the return to the company, not just in profits, but we can't begin to answer that, then we really haven't integrated corporate responsibility. We haven't really seen it as a strategic issue in today's world. Ask this question of CEOs, of people running corporate responsibility, and of financial analysts. And we came out with a study of how virtue creates value for business and society. A very interesting study, and again, if we have a little more time, we'll get into some of the details of that. But basically, the notion that companies are now beginning to recognize that issues like reputation, issues like employee engagement are equally important for the sustainability of their companies. And all this is coming under a notion of corporate responsibility that's changing as we go along. Next slide, please. We have so many examples now where companies have begun to look at this in different ways. Last year I was in India, very interesting, and was visiting a company that makes toothbrushes. And I said, you must have a lot of competition from China. They said, well, we used to, but once the lead poisoning issue came up in China, everybody said we probably have greater trust here in India from toothbrushes than we would in China. So all of the quality of products and services begins to make a big difference as well. Asking people from 26 countries across the globe, what do you expect of companies? What is your sense of their responsibility? And notice the top dark blue ones, are ones you'd probably expect most of the time.
It has 100,000 entries from people complaining about Walmart, including thousands of comments from employees. Imagine that as your public relations strategy. So there's a new level of transparency, a new level of activism. Next slide, please. Now you have 5 options on this first question. The first option is they are at a compliance stage, stage 1. Like Milton Friedman, they pay their taxes, they create jobs, they deliver profits, but they're increasing their contribution to society, to their businesses, to their relationships with suppliers and so on. They're creating new markets, social change. So these are your 5 options. Just on a sheet of paper, tell me where you think the majority of US companies are today. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. No? Okay, let's do it. Who says stage 1? Raise your hand. Okay. Who says stage 2? Okay. Stage 3? Stage 4? Stage 5? Okay. Now, second question. Where are the majority of Russian companies today? There's a 5 back there, yeah. 2, 1, 3, 2, okay. So this was a question we asked at our conferences, at gatherings. Where do you think, where's your company? And then, of course, rolled it up to an average. Now, when we started asking this question before the book came out, the majority of US companies were between stage 1 and stage 2. McDonald's, we thought we were making Happy Meals. We're a great American company. We didn't know. Why didn't they know? They didn't look. Now, how many of you look up information about companies on the internet? Take a look sometime at your company. There's a very interesting site, my translator, don't blush. It's called fuckwalmart.com. It has 100,000 entries from people complaining about Walmart, including thousands of comments from employees. Imagine that as your public relations strategy. So there's a new level of transparency, a new level of activism. When Novo Nordisk does it, when J&J does it, it's brilliant. When Coca-Cola does it, it's bullshit. But fundamentally, people are saying, change the way you do business. General Electric has changed the way it does business. Here's Jeff Immelt. Success in tomorrow's markets means working with stakeholders to understand, predict, and shape our future environment. Now, GE is a great company. They also have had some problems over the years, including a great CEO dumping PCBs in the Hudson River when he was in charge of the chemical business, Jack Welch. The Environmental Protection Agency said to Jack, who's making billions of dollars for GE, can you help us clean up the river? It's going to cost $100 million. Now that sounds like a lot of money. That's a rounding error in GE's balance sheet. What was Jack Welch's reply? We followed the law. It's not our job to clean it up. Well, some of the shareholders cheered. and then came out, well, the bureaucrats and pinheads in the government aren't going to tell us what to do. Oh. Jeff Immelt takes over, says, pay the fine. Our employees on the Hudson River have to deal with picketers every day. They're not comfortable sending their children to school. They feel ashamed of GE. Pay the fine. Risk and opportunity. You can see there's sets of risks for society and for business. It's climate change, youth unemployment, digital divide. These are areas where there's a good partnership now. Not a great partnership in climate change, for sure. Government, businesses, and NGOs working together.
Инициаторами вообще корпоративной ответственности, принципов соблюдения принципов социальной ответственности были компании, вы знаете, это МТС компания, Билайн, моя компания Вингельдан, когда-то тоже была в лице вообще чисто лидеров, которая соблюдала и держалась этих принципов, и это дало возможность, в общем-то, оценить компанию такие коэффициенты, по которым она была продана. Это, в общем-то, случай неординарный. Хотя нас очень мало.
В чем заключается проблема российского бизнеса и российского бизнес-сообщества? Проблема заключается в том, что мы понимаем одну простую вещь. Бизнес занимается бизнесом. Если мы с помощью наших технологий, называете это КСО, устойчивого развития, как угодно, мы можем бизнесу решить проблемы, которые стоят перед бизнесом сейчас, решили проблемы 10-го, 2-го, 30-го уровня, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Текущих расходов, текущих рабочих кадров, отношения с инвесторами, получение кредитов и так далее.
Этот блок мы делаем, здесь программы связаны с управлением корпоративной социальной деятельностью и различные международные программы повышения социальной и эффективности социальных инвестиций российских компаний.
I come at this from a very different direction because I work in corporate branding. I don't really come from marketing. I'm an organization theorist, so I'm doubly weird. But I will say this, we have been studying the move from product branding to corporate branding for about 15 years now. And I work with some of the major global brands like Nissan, Lego, Novo Nordisk, Johnson & Johnson, Boeing, Sony, and Telefonica. And what we've seen over the past 15 years is corporations have learned to take branding up to the corporate level is that they widen their point of view from the relationship between products and customers to the relationship between all employees and all stakeholders. And as you broaden the ambition and the outreach of your organization in that way, you end up stumbling into an area that is very closely related to CSR. The reason for that is that CSR, like branding, is about listening to your communities, listening to all the people who are engaged with you in one way or another in conducting an enterprise.
Тема управления устойчивым развитием, управление ответственностью как эффективная стратегия развития бизнеса или вообще не только часто, а когда-нибудь в таком ключе рассматривалось на, например, заседании бюро правления.